the tension spring assembly, firstly remove the cap screw that is holding the rod to the coupler body. Access to the cap screw is through the side plate of the coupler body. Once this is removed, simply pivot the swing arm away from the chassis. Rotate the tension spring assembly to a perpendicular position to the swing arm. This will allow the trunnions to slide upwards, enabling the removal of this component. With the tension spring assembly now removed, undo the retainer bolt that secures the swing arm pivot shaft to the coupler body. With a suitable pin punch, tap the shaft through the swing arm housing. Be careful to support the weight of the swing arm whilst removing the shaft completely. To remove the wedge assembly, firstly ensure the hydraulic cylinder is fully extended. This will enable access to the cap screws from the underside. Undoing the cap screws will allow for the removal of the wedge mount blocks above. Gently raise the cylinder rod and then slide the wedge out from the coupler body. To remove the hydraulic cylinder from the coupler body, simply undo the 2 bolts securing the front cover plate. Once this is removed, you will have full access to the 4 bolts securing the cylinder mounts. Slightly loosen these bolts, and then using the lifting point on the cylinder, connect a suitable lifting device to support the weight of the cylinder. Once supported, fully remove the 4 bolts from the assembly. Carefully raise the cylinder away from the coupler. To relieve the tension, simply use a suitable pair of multi-grips to lever the drive arm away, providing easy access to the cap screw stop. Using a pair of circlip pliers, remove the circlip and washer. The drive arm and tension spring are now free to be removed. To remove the drive arm mount, simply undo the cap screw and pull the mount out of the machine pocket on the coupler body. To remove the safety knuckle, firstly remove the shaft retainer bolt on the side of the coupler body. With a suitable pin punch, tap the shaft out completely from one side. This will allow the safety knuckle and spring to be removed. Once the safety knuckle is removed, access to the reset trigger and trigger mount is made possible. Firstly, undo the bolts holding the trigger mount in place on the coupler body. With a flat screwdriver, pry the captured leg of the coil spring away from the coupler body. The reset trigger assembly is now free to be removed. Before installing the trigger assembly, the DU bush must be fitted. To do this, simply press the bush into the housing, making sure the top hat is on the same side as the loop. Apply a small amount of grease around the loop flat surface and on the trigger mount shaft. Assemble the 2 parts together by sliding the shaft through the bush from the loop side. Fit the coil spring over the shaft, ensuring the short leg of the spring is locked into the trigger slot. Locate the shaft into the machine pocket on the inside of the coupler body and insert the 2 bolts. Lightly tighten, leaving a small gap between the bracket and coupler body. Using a hook tool, carefully lever the coil spring leg into the pocket on the coupler body to load tension on the coil spring. Complete the tightening of the bolts and torque to the recommended specification. To install the drive arm kit, firstly align the flat of the drive arm mount with the matching flat surface in the pocket on the coupler body. Apply a small amount of Loctite to the cap screw and tighten to the recommended torque specifications. Take the drive arm and insert the DU bush into the housing from the recessed side. Apply a small amount of grease to the bush and a liberal amount to the drive arm latch. With the long leg towards the coupler body, assemble the drive arm coil spring onto the mount and into the machine pocket. Slide the drive arm assembly onto the mount, making sure the shorter leg of the spring is sitting on top of the arm. Rotate the drive arm to allow the latch to insert through the loop on the trigger. Continue to rotate and hold against the spring tension to allow for the cap screw to be inserted, ensuring a small amount of Loctite is used. Torque the cap screw to the recommended specifications. Fitting of the washer and using a pair of circlip pliers to fit the circlip over the shaft will hold the arm in place. To install the safety knuckle kit, start with fitting the DU bushes. Slide the safety knuckle shaft through the DU bush from the left-hand side while slightly lifting the trigger, allowing the shaft to pass through. Position the shaft just proud of the trigger assembly. Add grease to the safety knuckle lobe and hold the knuckle in position, ensuring the correct orientation. Slide the shaft partially through the knuckle, which will now hold this in place. Rotate the safety knuckle by hand and position the safety knuckle coil spring with the short leg resting on the knuckle. Holding the spring in place, press downwards, releasing the knuckle, and then tap the shaft through to the other side. Apply Loctite to the shaft retainer bolt. Tighten and torque to the recommended specifications. Before installing the primary cylinder, apply a small amount of grease to the cylinder trunnions before fitting the mounts to the cylinder body. Gently lower the cylinder into the couple body, making sure the mounts are firm against the front plate. This will assist in keeping them in the correct orientation. Align the tapped holes of the cylinder body with the front plate and lightly screw in the top bolts to hold the cylinder in place. Add Loctite to the remaining bolts and screw these into place. Remove the top row of bolts, add Loctite, and screw back into place. Using a star pattern to provide even tension across the 4 bolts, tighten and torque to the recommended specifications. Fit the cover plate, apply Loctite to the bolts. Tighten and torque to the recommended specifications. Check the cylinder is free to pivot on the trunnions and under its own weight rest on the body. Before installing the wedge, apply grease to the bottom, top, and side surfaces of the wedge plate. Carefully insert the wedge into the slide cavity. Lift and pivot the cylinder to allow the wedge to slide into position where the clevis pin is sitting centrally between the 2 bolt holes on the wedge plate. Fit and locate each wedge mount into the machine pockets on the wedge plate, noting that the mounts can be assembled in either orientation. Apply Loctite to the cap screws. tighten and torque to the recommended specifications. To fit and install the swing arm and tension spring assembly, begin by fitting the swing arm to the coupler body. Insert the shaft from the left-hand side, leaving it flush with the inside surface. Slide the shaft all the way through the swing arm and lightly tap until the head of the shaft is hard against the coupler body. Apply Loctite to the retainer bolt and screw into position, tighten, and torque to the recommended specifications. Orientate the tension spring assembly with the trunnion flats on top and inset the assembly between the swing arms. Gently lower the spring assembly and rotate the swing arm over the wedge mounts towards the rear plate of the coupler. Locate the rod of the tension spring assembly into the mounting bracket on the coupler body. Insert the bolt and tighten the locking nut to suit.